Our Flashpoint series on education has been looking at education through a social justice lens. We've looked extensively at the dominant narrative that blames K-12 school failure on public school teachers and their unions. We focused on the corporate-driven education agenda that promotes standardized testing and curriculum as a weapon for closing and privatizing public elementary and secondary schools. And we've highlighted the growing resistance to this corporate K-12 education agenda and the growing movement for anti-oppressive, humanizing, culturally relevant, and socially just education. Similar struggles are happening over corporatization and privatization at colleges and universities around the country. Today we're going to highlight the battle to keep open one of the largest community colleges in the United States. To do that, we are really excited to be joined today by Allan Fisher. Allan Fisher teaches English as a second language at the City College of San Francisco. He is the former president and active member in the American Federation of Teachers Local 2121, the union that represents faculty at City College of San Francisco. Allan Fisher, welcome to Flashpoints, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for being on this wonderful radio station.
All righty. Can you start by telling us a little bit more about what's important to know about you and the work you've been doing in education and social justice?
I've been an activist for over 30 years in labor and solidarity and anti-war issues, and of course been very active in my union, the faculty union of City College of San Francisco.
Okay. And we have listeners around the country who may not have heard of City College of San Francisco. Tell us a little about the college and why it's significant.
Yeah, it's a very large college, and it's quite different than most of the community college, the 112 community college districts around the state of California, because it has an extremely large non-credit program, which is free to all people who wish to take courses there. The college has made a great effort to reach out to people, to give people from, you might say, disadvantaged communities or low-income people, to encourage them to study and provide opportunities to study. So we reach out to students who are second chance students who didn't do well in high school or studied and then dropped out, and to students who are immigrants who need to learn English, students who want to learn a skill either to get a job or for their own personal enrichment, such as computer skills. And there's parenting classes, serving older adults programs. There's an array of programs, courses, and services that reach out to people who have a hardship in life, and that's what makes City College so special. In fact, almost half of the courses are these non-credit free to the public courses.
All right, thank you for that. Now, the Accrediting Commission for Community and Junior Colleges is trying to terminate City College's accreditation, which would probably force it to close down. Give us some background on the story here.
Mm-hmm. Well, in July 2012, we got the decision from the Accrediting Commission, known as the Accjc, that we were put on show cause. And then a year later, they took a decision to say they would close us down by this July 2014. But we're still functioning, and we're still open for students due to a court injunction, because the district attorney of San Francisco filed a lawsuit against the Accjc, as did our union, the California Federation of Teachers, together with our local. So the Accjc itself has been put on trial. And the Accjc is full of conflicts of interest, breaks its own rules, is a very secretive and unaccountable body. And when you appeal to the Accjc, they're the ones you appeal to. So the same group that denies you accreditation is going to listen and determine your appeal. Now, the Accjc is functioning, we believe, as part of this consensus among the political and economic elites of our state to downsize community college education. The community colleges, through its 112 districts, has served over 2 million students, actually almost 3 million. It has since lost approximately 800,000 students over the last several years. I should say that this is part of the disinvestment of public education and higher education that's been going on. And the elites in our society have a consensus that they want to continue the disinvestment. They don't want to return to more spending for education, but they want greater results in terms of providing the skilled labor that they want to have to serve their corporate needs. So that's part of the background of this attack on community colleges and on City College of San Francisco.
All right, there's a lot there you said I want to drill down into a little deeper. Let's go back to the commission itself for a minute. You mentioned that there are conflicts of interest within the Accrediting Commission. What are some of those conflicts? Who are some of the powerful interests both within the commission and behind supporting the commission?
Sure. Well, among the commissioners are people who stand to gain from some of the demands that the Accjc is making on City College, such as they have criticized our finances and they say that we need to pre-finance up to 30 years of retiree health care that the college grants to full-time faculty retirees. And whereas previously the college had been going pay-as-you-go, now they want a lot more money. And guess who sits on the board of directors of one of the holding company where the money is supposed to go? Are two members of the Accjc Higher Commission. So that's just a quick glaring evidence of conflict of interest. Another one would be that the administrator on our first evaluation team, Peter Crabtree, is the husband of the president of the Accjc, Barbara Bino. And there's supposed to be like a firewall between the higher-ups and the evaluation team. So a couple of conflict of interest. But beyond that, the Accjc supported the Student Success Task Force, which is set up with funding and guidance from the California Business Roundtable and other corporate entities. The Business Roundtable is made up of approximately 100 CEOs of the most important and most prosperous multinationals in California. And they provided funding and provided the push for the Student Success Task Force, which made recommendations in which colleges are supposed to prioritize younger, more qualified students who go full-time to college and can relatively quickly make it through the 2-year and transfer route. So this, we we are all for workforce education. We know our students come to school to get a good job, among other things. So we don't have a quarrel with that. But when these forces change the mission of City College of San Francisco, making us take out cultural enrichment and lifelong learning, we were made to take that out of our mission statement. And they wanted us to take out also English as a second language and basic skills, adult basic skills. These things are real important for low-income students. They wanted us to take that out. We had to fight the Board of Trustees, which if now they don't exist anymore. We now have a one-man takeover at our school. But we had to take out these, change our mission statement to suit the Accjc, the Accrediting Commission. Beyond the Business Roundtable, there are important educational technology interests that want to see more standardized education that's more easily testing, and they want to see more technology. They want to lower employee wages to open up money for purchasing more software and computers and technology-related items that the college could invest in. So there are for-profit interests. The for-profit schools have a great deal of influence at the U.S. Department of Education policy, and when the downsizing of the California community colleges, which are very large, happens, of course, some of the students won't continue their education, but others will be driven into the for-profit school sector, which is more and more lucrative and is really greatly expanding in the last few years. So we see the interests of the for-profit schools, of the ed tech companies, and of, as I said before, the Business Roundtable, the elites of California in the business world. And then we shouldn't forget to mention real estate interests. We know also there's a connection of the real estate interests to support for the Student Success Task Force recommendations. And on a local level, we know that the San Francisco Chronicle is connected to real estate interests, and they have been very harmful to the image of the college. And we know that these real estate interests are looking at the possibility of selling off some of the sites of City College for their purposes. So there's really a lot to say about the corporate connection to the attack and the downsizing of City College and also of the California community colleges. Well, one of the beauties of the California Master Plan that was adopted in 1960 was not only to grant free community college education to everyone who might benefit in the state, but also that they set up all these local board of governors, board of trustees, elected by the local voters. And this gives the community a lot of influence over the policies of each college. And for instance, at City College, which I've described to some extent, our board of trustees shortly before the Accjc evaluation in 2012 had taken away Wells Fargo's. The college had to do all its business through Wells Fargo, and the Board of Trustees had ruled that we were going to break that relationship and move to these
community banks.
Yeah, move to community
Mm-hmm.
bank style dealings with financial issues. So it's very important that we have local voice at the community college levels. And so with the crisis of City College and the ACCJC's threat to take away our certification, and the Board of Governors, most of them who were they're appointed by the Governor of California, the Board of Governors of the state community college system, headed by Chancellor Bryce Harris. They, in July 2013, they suspended our elected Board of Trustees and put in its place what is called the Special Trustee with Extraordinary Powers, and his name is Robert Agrella. And he acts as a one-man rule. He's a czar, so he holds board meetings with himself, and he's paid more than $1,000 a day. He has been since 2012, because first he was brought on as a special trustee and now with extraordinary powers. So he can vote to indefinitely keep himself on as a special trustee with extraordinary powers. And it's been extremely harmful to our students and to the whole community and the employees of City College.
He can preempt the local board's ruling?
Well, the local board does no longer meet.
Oh, it doesn't meet. Wow.
And we did go through an election this fall, and we have a newly elected board, but the Board of Governors of the whole community college has determined that we would need 12 to 18 months before this elected board would be allowed to take place again. And we believe that until they get their hands on our real estate, until they satisfy their goals of downsizing the college, and we've lost 26,000 students, about 25% of our student body is gone, then until they finish the job, they're not going to they don't want the elected Board of Trustees to come back. And we also know the power of the democratic machine, that in fact the newly elected board will probably not even be as good from our point of view as the old board was. Nevertheless, it would be a great step forward to have the newly elected board replace the one-man rule imposed on us from Sacramento.
Wow. And is this happening at other community colleges in terms of actions of either the Accrediting Commission or the governing board level?
Yes. Many community colleges, up to perhaps 25% in California, have been sanctioned by the ACCJC. And one has been closed down, Compton down in L.A., and others have been put on show cause. So, there is a little bit of a revolt brewing against the ACCJC. But I want to go back to Washington, to the Department of Education, and try to describe the link between this harsh treatment of our community colleges and the very, very lenient treatment of the for-profit schools when they are accredited. If we go back to 2008, there was extensive lobbying by the for-profits of the Department of Ed, and there is a revolving door going on where high officials, lobbyists and other high officials from the for-profit industry get appointed to high positions at the Department of Ed in Washington. And then they do things like push for, in the K-12, they push for charter schools, and they push for more testing, use of more testing, and linking testing to evaluations of teachers, the student learning outcomes, push for the student learning outcomes. They're very big on data, collecting data to determine whether a college is doing well or not. And in fact, City College, by the data, is better than average and much better than the schools that the ACCJC's commissioners themselves represent. Mm-hmm. So we do well in terms of that form of data. But they did punish the City College for not enough student learning outcomes on our website. But going back to the Department of Ed, they are very much influenced by the for-profit schools. And in 2008, they set up a very strict 2-year rule that colleges who are sanctioned only have 2 years to satisfy their deficiencies. Meanwhile, they've been very, very lenient with the for-profit schools. So, yeah, we're keeping an eye on that as well.
Yeah, and I'm glad you made that connection, because that is exactly parallel to the kinds of processes we've talked quite a bit about in the series for K-12 education as well. That same agenda around standardization, testing, closing schools that don't meet certain benchmarks that are very narrowly defined, and then opening up to the profit sector and actually holding them in no way accountable to any of the same kinds of standards they're talking about for the public schools. There's a very parallel interests and parallel agendas there. I wonder if you can talk more about both the impact and then the response of the community at City College of San Francisco. So you've mentioned significant numbers of students have left. There's been a push to narrow the focus of the curriculum. What else can you say about how students and workers there have been impacted, and then how have people responded to all of these attacks?
Well, I'd like to say that even before the ACC came to evaluate the college, we were already, due to the tremendous budget cuts going on to public education, we were already cutting back on programs, services for students, lowering faculty pay, employee pay. So all kinds of cutbacks were already in the works. Then with the Accjc and the takeover by the special trustee, it just got much worse. So then we saw a significant increase in cuts to classes, to programs, to services, and a significant increase in kind of a speed up for the employees, not only taking a big pay cut, but being loaded on with more work. So it's been extremely harmful. As I've said, we've lost at least 25% of the student body. The terrible publicity. Many people in San Francisco and elsewhere think the college is closed or is not accredited. It is accredited. It's welcoming to students and provides excellent, high-quality education. That's something in this interview I forgot to mention, that no one has criticized the quality of education that the college provides to the community. But in terms of the response, there has been a tremendous response. We formed the Safe City College Coalition. We organized big demonstrations, up to 2,000 people. Working together with our union, Local 2121, the lawsuits were brought on. At first, the local elected politicians were not sympathetic to us. They basically said their message was, "Oh, the Accjc is so powerful, you just have to obey them and don't protest because they'll only hit back harder at you." But now they've been exposed so much, and there's been so much resistance that almost all the local elected officials, except for the Mayor Lee, have come out strongly in support of the Safe City College resistance, and Jackie Spear has been very helpful, Congresswoman. Jackie Spear has been very helpful, and even Nancy Pelosi has come on board and said that the Accjc has been out of line. But we have a deafening silence from both Barbara Boxer and Dianne Feinstein and the governor, Jerry Brown. In terms of Dianne Feinstein, we do know that she has interests related to the for-profit sector of public education. And we also know that John Burton is on the board of Phoenix University, and there are other connections to the for-profit industry and the Student Loan Marketing Association that the Democratic Party may have that might be the reason for their reluctance to support us.
Mm-hmm. So, as a result of both the organizing and the lawsuits, where do things actually stand today, and what's coming up around any kind of action in the future?
Well, the Safe City College Coalition is still functioning. We organized a demonstration at the last Board of Governors meeting of the California colleges down in De Anza College. And we have the trial. December 9th is closing arguments. The trial continues to go on, and we're hopeful of a good ruling from the judge, Curtis Carno, at San Francisco in the State Superior Court. And then we have another lawsuit from the California Federation of Teachers that may be introduced. Well, it has been introduced, but may go forward. At the very least, we're going to be reevaluated again. There's no way the college will be decertified, as much as the Accjc has threatened us with that. We're sure that the judge will not allow that to go forward. However, he may rule that the college needs to go through another evaluation process. And since the Accjc at the moment has a monopoly, then we'll have to deal with that situation. There is a law that was passed in the state legislature, thanks to Mark Leno and others, that the college will be held responsible in terms of the under-enrollment for this year. So we'll still have our enrollment, but with this, we say the carpetbagger and wrecking crew administration, they're still closing classes even though the money's there to keep them open. But we're going to continue to fight back, and we're strong. And if anyone wants to hook up, connect with us, we have a website, www.saveCCSF.org, so they can contact us there. And again, www.saveCCSF.org.
All right. What makes you most concerned about the future of public education, both at the college level and just more generally all the way from kindergarten through post-secondary? And then what makes you most hopeful?
Of great concern is that our system of public education is being used now in a way that increases the great disparity of wealth in our society. So instead of making our society more humane, more democratic, with more participation in the so-called democratic process, the opposite is occurring. We see that the agenda of the economic and political elites seems to be a consensus to transform our higher education into training ground for corporate needs. They want to see many more university diplomas and workforce certificates, but they don't want to see a broad-based education in which people have their lives enriched by arts, humanities, diversity studies, labor studies, all these things, older adults programs, free English as a second language programs. They don't have an interest in sustaining those kinds of programs that help make us a better society, a more egalitarian society. So that's my great concern, and my great hope is that that more people will get involved in this struggle to save public education and to transform it into a more in an education that pushes for more equity among our population, that makes us a more equitable and a more humane society. That's what we need, not what they are doing to City College.
All right. Thank you for that. Part of the corporate education agenda at the K-12 level is very much about attacking teachers' unions. So the blame for failing schools, quote unquote, is bad teachers, and those bad teachers are there because unions protect them. In the case of teachers who actually can raise test scores, then there's merit pay, but the rest of them need to be fired. That's the dominant narrative. I'm just wondering if any kind of similar attacks on unions are operating at the college level.
Absolutely. When the Accjc came to City College, they criticized our union. They criticized our contract. They said that we were too kind to our part-time faculty. In the community colleges, part-time faculty are the majority, unlike in K through 12, and they don't have tenure. But we at City College have provided full health benefits to most of our part-time faculty and pro rata pay, which basically it's almost equal pay for equal work. That's the goal. And the ACCJC criticized us, and this special trustee for extraordinary powers, Robert Agrella, he has said that he wants to bring our wages down so that a smaller share of the college budget goes to employee costs, presumably so that more technology, it's testing, more administrators, as we see happening, more consultants, highly paid administrators who don't do a lot are being hired all the time. So we see a definite attack on unions and happening through this accreditation process.
Anything else to say about what's behind that? I mean, you mentioned that actually the extent to which they can drive down wages and then open up positions for administrators. Anything else behind that attack? We know there's been long-term attacks on private unions, and so now the attack on teachers' unions seems to be one of the leading wedges in attacking public unions more generally. Any other thoughts about the bigger picture here?
Yeah, well, we know that teachers' unions and unions in general are one of the obstacles to the agenda, the corporate agenda in this country, and to some degree. And in our case, we've been a progressive union, and we have been an obstacle in the agenda, the corporate agenda. So, that's part of the equation here in the attack.
All right, thank you for that. Anything else you want to address that we haven't covered today?
I don't recall whether I mentioned the importance of the Student Loan Marketing Association, sometimes has been referred to as Sally Mae, and how they were originally set up by the federal government many years ago, and they were privatized. They give out the loans. They have a heavy lobbying influence in Congress. John Boehner is one of them, I believe, and so they have been pushing to keep control of their lucrative loans, along with other large banks, and they are. We believe that they've set up the Lumina Foundation. They took $700 million to set up the Lumina Foundation, and this foundation has given grants to the Student Success Task Force, which created the Student Success Initiative in Sacramento, which is now legislation, which pushes for limiting access to higher education for our students. That's why City College was one of the main groups that fought against the Student Success Task Force, while the ACCJC endorsed the Student Success Task Force. And out of their recommendations have come policies like limiting financial aid for students, and no repeatability. Okay, limiting the amount of times a student can take courses. And since City College students are often, are mostly people who are working and older people, they need to be able to repeat. As I was saying, while the Accjc was supporting the Student Success Task Force, City College was the main force in opposition because we want to protect access for our students in our non-credit program. And that task force wants to limit, and they are part of that corporate consensus, elite consensus, to prioritize full-time students who are younger and full-time, and they have better academic backgrounds. They can go through college quickly and transfer, get their diploma. And, City College is open for the whole community, not just those students. Of course, we want to serve those kinds of students, but we're open for the whole community. We want to maintain that. And, of course, when colleges are downsized, then more students have to take out loans, and that benefits the banking industry and the Student Loan Marketing Association. So that's all part of what's behind this attack on the community colleges.
And are the costs for students to go to City College rising?
They have risen.
Mm-hmm.
They're still the lowest in the country, $46 a unit. Mm. But even that is a hardship for many, many students who have to work just to live in San Francisco or in the Bay Area. So it's such a high cost. So that takes a toll. Now, many of our students have a fee waiver, but they've instituted a new policy that you have to have a C average in order to get the fee waiver. And listeners might say, well, what's wrong with that? That C average, that shows you're taking your studies seriously. But people need to understand the hardships that our students face, and many of them come from very poor, they don't have necessarily high school educations. They need a lot of remedial work. A C average could be daunting for their fee waiver. Mm-hmm. We want to encourage these types of students.
All right. Anything else you want to address that we haven't covered?
No, I think I got most of what I wanted to say out. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
All right. Well, our guest today has been Allan Fisher. He is an English as a second language teacher at the City College of San Francisco, former president of the union that represents the faculty there, the American Federation of Teachers Local 2121. And Allan, thank you so much for sharing your insights, your wisdom, and your inspiration with us today. We will continue to watch the story at CCSF as we go forward.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
All right.